work together. And I think that Rob is a prime example of someone who has a vision, has a goal, has a dream, and he's gonna do it. Regardless of who shows up, who don't, he's gonna do it and continue to do it. I'm so happy to see his wife here and Little Lyric. She has spoken at every event. I think she steals the crowd in all the events. I'm just excited to always be here with him. So that's why I'm here. But Robert, again, he was originally born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. He moved to Indianapolis from Chicago around 2008 and started his own family, as you can see. But we're missing a couple of the family, but he definitely started his own family here. After a few years of living here, Rob came to realize that so many people in this world were looking for hope and inspiration. I believe that they are. I believe people need someone to tell them it's going to be all right. I believe people looking for somebody to say, hey, if I did it, I know you can do it. There's nothing special about me. So I agree with Rob when he says that his motto is inspired to inspire. I had to kind of take a hold of that when he first said it. I was like, whoa, slow down. What did you say? You just said the same thing twice. But no, his motto is inspired to inspire, which leads him on a journey to start walking to downtown streets in Indianapolis and reaching out to the homeless. I think Journey went with him too. Robert sat and talked with many homeless people during his journey and seen the impact he made just by having a simple conversation. Today, Robert's passion is to get the message out to as many people as he can. I like for everybody to welcome the host, the creator, the man behind the What If theory, Mr. Robert Shao.
All right, Lyric, thank you.
Great job, Larry.
Well, you guys already heard me speak. You guys heard me speak already today, so I'm not much of a motivational speaker, and these guys kind of said everything, so good luck.
Good night.
Yeah, good night. Thanks for playing. Thanks for coming out.
Are you serious?
No, I'm kidding.
I was like, what?
That one with the price of admission.
But, yeah, I'm sorry, I keep a straight face sometimes so people don't know if I'm happy, sad, or whatever I'm doing. But anyways, again, thank you guys again for coming out and listening to us and listening to all the speakers and getting to meet all the different people. Man, I love this. So, just like what Greg said, I'm not gonna really talk much about myself because it's in my book. You know, like I said, like Greg said, we wrote a book. So, Greg has heard my stories. Some of you have heard my stories as well. Tell you a little bit about me, but again, it's in my book. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have my little daughter pass out these cups. So I want everybody to hold a cup. So whenever you're ready, Lyric, come up here. Come on, let's go. So I just want everybody just to hold a cup. Just hold a cup. So anyways, again, born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I'm not originally from Indianapolis. I grew up, when people hear Chicago, you know, they think of all the different things that they hear on the news or, you know, Chicago being a great city. Don't get me wrong, Chicago's a great city. It's not a place I'd ever want to move back. But going back to my childhood as I grew up, again, we all have stories, is when I grew up in Chicago, I grew up on a second floor attic apartment. So the one thing I love is when I go and I speak to the kids in the detention center, the first thing I say to them is, hey guys, judge me. You know, because I'll come dressed like this, you know, somewhat nice, somewhat decent. Say, judge me. And every one of them will judge me. And I always get the same response. Man, drove daddy's car, probably lived in the suburbs, had some money. I get that response all the time. And you know what? I love that. Because once I tell my story to them, everything changes. Yeah. All of a sudden, you're looked at different. Because we all judge one another. But we all know that we all have a story. So growing up in Chicago, when I was the age of 5, my brother was 3, we grew up in a second floor attic apartment. Not the greatest neighborhood, it wasn't the worst neighborhood, but we all have that image burned in our head of something that happened to us a long time ago, or something we seen that we didn't want to see and we remember and we wish we could forget. The one thing I have burned in my head since I was 5 was I remember looking out the second floor attic apartment. And when I say attic apartment, I mean like the whole house was like this because we were in the attic. So my brother and I, we shared a room. It was a small place. But I remember looking out the window, and I said, oh, I saw my dad outside. He was throwing all this stuff in the back of a white van. And I said, Dad, what are you doing? He said, don't worry, son. Your mother will be home soon. And the last thing I remember him doing is throwing, and some of you older folks here, if you remember the old bottles of Prel shampoo, they look like an I Dream of Genie bottle. He had that in his hand, and that was the last thing he threw in the van and drove away. And that was the last time I called him Dad. So when I sit there and I think about that, that's that image that will always be burned in my head. And that's a story I always share. And I tell everybody that. So for years as I was growing up, and I wasn't getting anywhere, or I wasn't getting what I wanted, whose fault was it? Guess what? My dad's. Everything was my dad's fault. My dad's fault, I didn't become a professional baseball player later in life. My dad's fault, I didn't become an actor. My dad's fault, I didn't go to college. It was my dad's fault, I didn't go to military. I use the same excuse all the time. It was always his fault. But when I was growing up, I grew up with a mother who was disabled. So what we needed to do with my brother and I, we had to go down the Chicago alleys looking for soda cans, pop bottles, something that we can take, bring back, recycle, and make a little bit of extra money so we can buy some milk. And I'm not trying to sound sad about this, but that's how we grew up. And you know what? I thought that was normal. As I was getting older, everybody around me had single parents, single mom, single dad. Everybody was complaining about their parents. Everybody was complaining about the same thing all the time. Until I realized, you know what? We're all complaining about the same thing. But how are we going to get forward doing this? And when I speak at these events, and when I get the opportunity to go out and speak, I let people know right away that I speak on faith. Right? I heard all these stories that you go speak in a school, or you go speak somewhere, you can't speak on faith. But you know what? The number one thing you need in order to move forward in life is faith. Mm-hmm. That's what you need. You know, that's where it starts. And I'm going to share these stories with you. When I was growing up, and everything being my father's fault, and listening to everybody else say it was his fault, or it was their parents' fault, I bought into that. And I needed to do something different. And I always heard the story, my father left me, and his father left him. So what did you think I heard as I was growing up? You're going to probably leave your family. And I heard that. And it hurt. And now, my wife is right back here taking pictures. My beautiful little girl. I've been with my wife for almost 21 years. Woo! And see, in life, there's that chain that gets broke. But what you need to do is that broken chain that you have in your life, you need to reconnect it and start something new. Because if you don't, you're always going to be in that broken link. And how are you going to repair yourselves? What are you going to do different? So anyways, going back and growing up in Chicago, as I got older, the neighborhood got worse. I had friends that ended up losing their life later on. I had friends that moved out of the neighborhood. My high school was the first high school that had metal detectors in the high school. So if anybody ever seen the movie Dangerous Minds, yeah. My school was similar to that. And people wouldn't think that's true, especially growing up in the suburbs. They're like, there's no way it could have been that bad. Yeah, you know what? Come to my school. But to me, I thought that was normal. So anyways, as I got older, obviously, and doing different things, there was things I was told I couldn't do, and I started doing. I had a buddy that lived back home. And this guy, he was a phenomenal artist. He wanted to become an artist. He wanted to have his own tattoo shop. And that's what he loved to do. People would hire him for tattoos, for car logos, for all these different things just to get some kind of picture. Something he can create. Not something that he can duplicate, but create himself. That was a talent he had. And somebody said it earlier, we all have a 10 in something. We're all great at something. He knew what he was great at. He knew that he could become an artist. But he started hanging around with the wrong people. Started getting involved in the wrong crowd. All the people doing I don't know necessarily drugs, but he got involved with gangs. In Chicago, every other block is a gang. And he got involved with these gangs. So I started pushing myself away from him and would talk to him every now and then. Or, just see him on the street and just say, hey, but I stayed away from him. And so did my brother. And one day my brother came home and he said, hey, did you hear what happened to George? I said, no, he just got murdered. And it was devastating. This was a person that I knew who had a talent, who could take it to the next level, but guess what? He can no longer do that. He's got a talent that nobody in here will ever see again. He's got a talent that he can never teach anybody and nobody will ever learn from him because he took it to the grave. And see, when I say everybody has a talent in something, everybody does have a talent in something. And if you don't utilize it, you don't use it, you don't teach it, you don't coach it, you don't show it, guess where it goes with you? Right to the grave. And when we talk about coming out to these different events, our stories are not for us anymore. Our stories are meant to be shared because our story can literally save someone's life. Back home too, with the whole judging thing, sometimes you look at somebody and say, man, I wish I had what they had. Or I wish I looked what they look like. I ain't gonna lie, I do that all the time. I still do that. I think my wife looks at me and says she wishes I looked like Thor, but I'm pretty close. But anyways, there was this guy that I went to school with, and I won't say his name, but this guy ended up, once we got out of high school, real funny guy, real cool guy, probably about 6'3", 6'4". I'm like 5 foot nothing. And, he ended up, becoming, I don't want to say a bodybuilder, but a fitness instructor, teaching people how to work out and being fit. And this is a guy I looked at, man, he's a 6'3", 6'4". It's like, man, I wish I looked like him. I wish I was tall like him. I wish I was built like him. I wish I had a business because he had a fitness business. He taught me to be his own business. I'm like, man, this guy's got everything. I'm like, man, I wish I had something like that. And, it's like, I looked up to him, he was funny. One day everybody was at a party. And at this party, everybody just kind of hanging out, talking, doing whatever. Everybody within the next few days started getting text messages and phone calls. And you're like, hey, did you hear what happened? It's a bird. That was his nickname. So no. He went home. And he hung himself. He committed suicide. And I thought about this. What happened? What did we miss? And when I look at that guy and I think about it now, do I really want what he had? He left behind a wife and a daughter. Do I really want to have and look like him? No. Until this day, this was about 7 or 8 years ago, nobody knows what happened. Or somebody knows and somebody's not telling anybody. But I don't know. But when you think about stuff like that, maybe he had, and maybe he needed to hear a story like this to save his life the next day. Maybe he just needed somebody's ear to make a difference. Because sometimes, how many times have you heard somebody didn't jump off that bridge because somebody talked to him?
Yep.
Or somebody jumped off that bridge because somebody didn't talk to him. We need those people in our life. You have a greatness within you. You have something special within you. And you have something that's going to help somebody and save somebody else. But how do you change that? You have to start taking that next step within your life. You have to start sharing your story. You have to start going to events like this. Greg said it earlier. How many people in here know somebody that should be at a place like this today? All of us do. And we always tell ourselves that I know somebody who needs to listen to this. And see, all of us have self-doubt. All of us have that fear. All of us are afraid of something, whether it's failure or being embarrassed or we're worried about somebody else's opinion. You know how many people are in the world? Over 6 billion. Who cares about a few people's opinions? Move forward. Make a difference. So these empty cups that got passed out to you, Yeah, sounds a little silly. Sounds a little crazy. It's an empty cup. Why do you give me an empty cup? But I want you to pretend and think about this. All your self-doubts, all your fears, all the issues and all the problems that you have on why you can't get to the next step, I want you to pretend you're putting them in that cup. Just dump them right in there. Let them go. Why are you holding on to them? When I say I speak on faith, I speak on faith because my wife backed me up on this. She started going to church when we lived out here about 5-6 years ago. And, hypocrites, I don't want to go to church, I don't want to do that kind of stuff. Well, I started going to church, and all of a sudden it's like, man, I'm starting to like something here. Something's starting to happen. So then I started going more and more, and all of a sudden my wife, she kind of cried because, man, my husband's getting rebaptized. And I did. And then I started my ministry going out to the streets of Indianapolis downtown. I'm like, why aren't we doing something different? But how did that start? This is exactly how it started. Believing in faith. And when I was in those moments, see, I've always felt like I've been good at leading people to things. So one day, I was driving to work. And I pretended the Lord's in the car with me. Hey, Lord. And I said, man, I'm good at leading people to things. What can I lead people to? And I got this message. Well, what's better than me? Oh, all right, you got me there.
Yep.
How do I top that? Did I think of that on my own, or did I get that message from them? Okay, what's better than you? What do I need to do? Just funny. Just driving in the car, thinking, all right, what do I need to do when I got that message? The message I received next was, write a letter of forgiveness to your father and send it to him. I pulled over. I called my wife, seriously, right away. She backed me up on this. I said, you'll never believe what I just got. You'll never believe what I just heard. And I still couldn't believe it. And you know what she said? Yeah, that's what you heard. After all these years of everything being his fault, and me not becoming anything or going anywhere because of fear and listening to other people's opinions and him leaving, and I get that message? Why would I think of something like that? That's crazy. So you know what? I became obedient. Because now, I got rebaptized, I'm going to church, and I'm trying to listen, and I'm trying to do things different, I'm trying to do things better, I'm trying to help people who want the help. Because I've always been a person, if you want the help, I'm going to do everything I can to help you. But if you don't want it, I can't waste my time on you. I need to waste my energy. Or not waste my energy, but put my energy on somebody who wants it. Somebody who will take it with them. Out of all those years of growing up in Chicago, hearing about friends that committed suicide, hearing about friends that passed away, not going to visit my grandfather in the hospital because somebody got me in the fear of getting on elevators, so I wouldn't go to the hospital to see him. And because of that, because I listened to somebody's opinion and I let that take over, he passed away in the hospital and I didn't get to see him. Because I was scared of the stupid elevator. So, with that being said, we all have some kind of self-doubt, some kind of fear that we need to get over. We need to let go. We need to say no more. What's the purpose of holding on to it? But going back to being obedient, the hardest thing I did in my life, guess what? Was writing that letter of forgiveness. And I look back, I'm like, man, this was the hardest thing I ever done. You know how long it took me to write that letter? A week. 1 week to write this letter. I'm a grown man, I ain't gonna lie. Well, I'm not really grown, I'm 5'8", but I ain't gonna lie, I cried. It was hard. And you know what, I knew he lived in Illinois. I wasn't sure where, but guess what tells you everything? Google. Yep. I Googled his address, I said, I think this is him. I think this is where he lives. I wrote the letter, put it in an envelope, walked to the mailbox, put it in the mailbox, pulled up that little red flag, and as I walked away from the mailbox, I felt like I floated. Because I felt this anchor fall off my my chest. And I got this message, going back to what Greg said earlier. You have now been inspired. Now inspire others. So my motto is inspire to inspire. Because if I can inspire just one person in here, that's all it takes. That one person can help inspire somebody else. When I go out to schools and I speak, I listen to some of these students' stories and some of these students' problems and some of the things that they're going through. Because they'll share that to me when I get out and I speak, as I speak on my book, The What If Theory. I thought somebody was there, sorry. But I speak on the what if theory. In my book, it's a journal, and it's got over 80 questions of what if. Every day, or at some time during the week, or sometime during the month, we all think of a what if, or we say it to ourselves, or we say it out loud. Man, what if I turn right instead of left? What if I go to sleep now instead of later? Well, here's some of the questions that are in the book. One question, what if I became an artist? What kind of artist would I become and why? And who do you think that question was dedicated to? To my buddy who got murdered hanging around with the gangs. Every question in that book is something I either said, or it's something that somebody else said, and I kept it. Because we all have a what if question. We all have a what if moment. So, but what are we doing about it? So once we figure out our what if, or we find out what our what if question is, we need to find the why behind it in order to move forward. Because if we don't, we'll still be stuck on, well, what if? What if I do go out with my friends tonight? What if I don't go to that conference tonight and I just go to the movies? Even though it's the same movie that will be playing tomorrow, and you missed an event that you needed to be at. And then because you missed that event, because you went to the movies, and you're having a bad day, you go home, and the next day you complain about, man, I need to move forward. I need some motivation. But you just missed this. It was right here. It was calling you, but you weren't listening. So when I go back to being obedient, and I go back to listening, I have a quote that will be in my book. What is it I'm hearing and not listening to? And what is it I'm seeing and looking away from? See, somebody said something, I think it was Greg, about resources, or Jamie said something about resources all around us. You know, all the resources are there. So are the signs. So are the messages. But we become ignorant and we look away from them. We disregard them. Man, I got stopped at this red light. Again, I'm trying to get to the hospital, or I'm trying to get to the store, and I keep catching every red light. Maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe somebody is saving your life by stopping you. Or they're saving somebody else's life, because if you get that green light or that yellow light and you slam into somebody else and you don't save their life. Everything happens for a reason. I used to believe in a coincidence. I don't believe in a coincidence anymore. Everybody that's sitting here today, you're here for a reason. And you may find out what it is later today or tomorrow, a week, 2 weeks. You may never, next year. But something's going to spark, because at some point in your life, you're going to remember, oh, I remember this guy saying that. Or somebody's going to say something and it's going to resemble, man, I remember that. You're going to go home and talk about it. Be like, you know what? That was kind of ridiculous. Or you know what? He was kind of right. He kind of made some sense. What do I do next in order to what I want to have next? So ask yourselves, what is it you want? And why do you want it? But why do you deserve it? Because we all do. We're always asking ourselves, or we're always telling ourselves, or we're always feeling like we're stuck. Because we are. But sometimes what I've learned is when I become in that stuck moment, what do? What am I hearing and not listening to? What am I seeing and looking away? That's how I pull myself out of that stuck moment. all right, God, I ain't listening to you. I'm listening to you now. I'm stuck. What do I do? What's my next move? How do I do it? So anyways, I worked with Mr. Spencer here at Kroger for a long time. I like the retail world, I like the industry, but I had to get out of it because I knew I was gonna go nowhere there. I was just a body that they put in a store that wasn't, just had a lot of problems. We'll leave it there. But anyways, I decided to move on. Well, then I ended up working for Speedway gas station. Well, I was with Kroger, left Kroger for a while, and I came back because I needed a job. But anyways, I went to go work for Speedway gas station, and I worked there for a while, and I really liked it, but the way they operated was very tough. You know, they made it very hard for management. So I was putting in 75, 80 hours a week. How many of you want to put in 75, 80 hours a week and only get paid for 50 of them? Especially if you have families. We all have a life, we want to do something different. We want to have fun. I don't want to go home and fall asleep with my phone in my hand. Nobody wants to do that. What am I missing out on? See, I was missing out on family time. And that's whether you're working 80 hours a week or you're working 20 hours a week, you're always missing out on something. But how do you get that back? Sometimes you can't. You know, like Mr. Jeff here says he watches a whole lot of TV. So what is he missing during all that time? We're all missing something at some point. And we need to figure out, how do we get refocused? So when I talk about the Refresh Live conference, there's a reason I call it Refresh Live. Because it's about refreshing your mind, refreshing your mindset, refreshing the way you think, refreshing your surroundings, the people around you, the people in your life. So this is a refresh, to re-energize, to start again. Because everybody that's here tonight, listening to all the speakers that are here, I want everybody that walks out that door to say, this is what I'm going to start doing differently. But the problem with that is, that becomes what they call motivation. And see, motivation comes from within. And sometimes if you're not motivating yourself, you start to lose that. Then you say, you know what? Forget it. But you have to understand, when you want something, you're going for it, you have to keep pushing for it, it's going to get hard. It will get harder. That's because you're being challenged. Somebody's saying, well, this is what you want. You know what? Okay. Let me try to stop this. And then we go back to our old self saying, you know what? I'm comfortable just like this. And you know what? If that's the way you want it to be, that's fine. But I want to motivate you. I want to inspire you. How many people here have gone camping before? Probably all of us gone camping. And you lit that fire. Once you got that fire lit, you motivated it, right? It's not motivated. It's got this fire going. But what starts to happen after a while? It might start to rain outside a little bit. And what starts to happen? It starts to put that fire out. You know what that's called again? Your motivation. Motivation starts to go away, starts to disappear. So what do you need to do? You need to figure out how to light that fire again. How do you keep it lit? Man, it's raining. What do you put over it to stop that motivation? So there's so many different things that we can all talk about. These are things that you guys have heard before. But the reason I'm here to inspire you is because I want you to inspire the next person. I got my little kids. Someday you will have little kids. What kind of people do I want my kids hanging around with? People who want something, people who are motivated, people who are inspired, people who want to go somewhere. I don't want them hanging around with the wrong crowd. I want them to move forward. I want them to be happy. I want them to be successful, just like all of us. Going back to talking to one of those students, I said, in the what if, she came up to me after class and said, man, I really want to be a doctor because I have in my book, what if I became a doctor? What kind of doctor and why? Oh, I want to be a doctor. Why do you want to be a doctor? It makes me feel good. I want to become a doctor. What kind of doctor do you want to be? She wanted to be a pediatrician. Everybody here know what a pediatrician is? Mm-hmm. Doctor for kids. So I got to talking to her, but she gave me the reasons why she couldn't become a pediatrician. This girl was only 17 or 18 years old, getting ready to graduate high school. I can't become a doctor because my parents dropped out of high school. Because my friends said it's going to be too many years of schooling. My friends said it's going to cost me too much. She didn't even graduate high school yet, and she's already quitting. You're already giving up. Why? So I said, okay, you want to be a pediatrician, but why? Here comes the why part. She told me, she said, I want to be a pediatrician because I love to help kids. I want to see them grow and develop. Why? I asked her again. She told me some more. Why? I kept asking her why, and she was getting so loud. She was getting so excited. You could see the glow on her face. Then I stopped her. I said, the reason I'm inspiring you to become the doctor you want to become, because one day you might be the doctor that saves my kid's life. And if I didn't have the chance to inspire you to become that doctor,
Yes.
what if my kid didn't have the doctor she needed? Because it came back to ignorance. It came back to fear. It came back to other people's opinions. Who cares about other people's opinions? I used to care about them all the time. Now I don't. Every once in a while, don't get me wrong, I'll still get mad. I'll still get upset, something doesn't happen. But I learned to start changing my ways. And my wife was one of them to help me. Because if she didn't drag me to that church, because if she didn't say, you need to go here, you didn't need to do this, and I didn't listen, it's just another church. Just another building. But then when you come to realize, you know what? The church is just a building itself. You are the church. That's just a building with people in it. So what are you doing today to make a difference tomorrow? How is this conference or this event going to affect you when you leave here tonight? Are you going to think about it? Are you going to start changing your ways? Are you going to say, I want to have something different and then do something about it? But everybody here is now everybody's motivation. So when Spencer starts to feel down and say, I can't have something or I can't do this, and he's getting this argument, man, we're never going to have this. We're never going to be financially set. Maybe sometimes a phone call to Rob or Greg or Jamie or Robert or Jeff. Hey man, I just need a couple minutes to talk. Because sometimes that's all we need. Remember those seconds Jeff talks about? Sometimes we just need a couple of them to talk to somebody else. Sometimes we can't talk to our significant other because we just can't, or we feel we can't, or we'll feel embarrassed, or we'll feel ashamed, or we'll feel like, you know what, maybe they don't think I'm strong enough. But I'll learn to get rid of that. Again, don't get me wrong, I still get upset. I'll still say things I probably shouldn't say. She's like, But if you knew who I was, when Jacqueline knew who I was almost 20 years ago, I was the guy that would get into road rage, and I was the guy that would get out of the car. Because I was so mad. Somebody cut me off, I'd follow them. I was mad. I'd go cut them back off. I'd give them the bird. I'd do something because I was so mad. But now, you know what? When somebody screams past me, you know what I think? What if they're going to a hospital right away because there's an emergency and their kid or something just happened? I give them the benefit of the doubt to a certain point. When you realize, okay, this is ridiculous, but then I stay away from it. But I learn to stay away from negativity. So all those cups that you guys have, man, I hope you guys put all that self-doubt in there. I hope you got rid of all that fear. You probably didn't. You're going to still hold on to some of it. I get it. Sometimes you need to let loose. But you know what we're going to do with those? We're going to throw them away. Lyric's going to walk around with a bag, and you're going to throw them in the trash. Because you're going to leave them here tonight when you leave. And think different and do different to have different. Because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in the same situation. So I say, I'm here to inspire, and I ask every one of you, just like any other company, everybody has a motto. What's yours? What do you stand for? And why do you stand for it? Thank everybody, and I thank you all for coming out and listening to us. Thank you. Look at that, and we still got some time to network.